Right. So with that, I will declare the meeting open. I won't say what time's on my watch because it doesn't match the clock up there. 4 minutes past 3. Declare the meeting open. And welcome everybody to the meeting today. Firstly, before we switch over to Emma for the karakia, I'd like to welcome Steve McLaren, our Ngāti Mahaki EV representative. Welcome to the Wastewater Treatment Oversight Subcommittee first meeting, and also with welcoming Steve, I'd also like to acknowledge Barry and his work that he did while he was on the committee. Barry brought a lot to the table, not just here, but as a person, he brought so much to Hokitika and to Westland, very passionate about the region and the people, and he brought such a wonderful skill set with him. His mind, just everything. The respect that everybody had for Barry is going to be something that sits with us all, and I think as we progress through this and get closer to getting things across the line, I know personally I'll be sort of thinking, you know, what would his comments been on this? So I think he'll live on in being a bit of a guide for many, many years to come for many people. So yeah, welcome Steve, and thank you to Barry, and we will go over to Emma for the karakia. Oh, sorry, and just for those that don't know, our new committee member, Patrick Phelps, Councillor Phelps, for anybody that hasn't met Patrick before, Northern Ward Councillor. This week right under the table now, he's quite comfortable in his role. And welcome, and welcome to the committee. Emma, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Kai mai tātou, I ngā mihi ana ki a koutou kua ki tia e rere ana I runga o te karanga o Matariki, Manawatia, Matariki, Nainei. E te atua kaharawa manaki tia mai o pōnoka e noho ana I tēnei hui, mo te kaupapa, tātou oranga I te wai, oranga I te tinana, oranga I te wairua. Mo te matua, te tama, te wairua tapu, ake te mātu,
Thank you very much for that. Now, apologies we haven't heard from James regarding today, unfortunately, and my apologies also go out to the leaders for the first approach that came out. It did have Barry down as an apology, and my apologies for that. But I think probably the man would be quite happy to be here, still watching over us anyway. So we've got no apologies to move, to accept, so we'll move on to the declarations of interest. Interest register is here. It's a living document, so please check that everything's on there, encourage, and if not, it doesn't take much to update yourselves on it, which will have to get you onto it, and you'll see from the lead on what everybody else has got, what you need to put on there. And it just takes the risk out of representation. There's no urgent items on the agenda, so with that we will move over to the minutes of the previous meeting. They were circulated separately via Teams. It is from the subcommittee meeting that we had on the 8th of February. I'm hoping everybody's seen the minutes and read them. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? So we may resolve that the minutes be accepted as a true and accurate record. Fine. Ashley, thank you. So it's resolved that the minutes of the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Oversight Subcommittee meeting held on the 8th of February 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. And I agree that the digital signature be added to the confirmed Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Oversight Subcommittee meeting minutes of 8th of February 2023. Right, so with that, we'll move on to the presentations and welcome John to the table again.
Thank you.
Who will take us through the presentation and have discussion as we progress. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Is there a window over there that I can close? Sounds like a heavy cable.
No, I
I
think it's just
Just the windows.
oh, yeah, it's the same down in our
You
building.
might have to just
Yeah, I'll project. Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me again. Welcome Steve and welcome Patrick. Today's presentation is to give you an update since the last meeting, present the planned engagement through to the end of the year, and seek endorsement from the committee for that engagement process, which culminates in community information and feedback sessions in November. That's the timeline that's been set out. So I am in control. So I'll talk through the presentation. Please ask questions at any time, and I will take everyone for a quick guided tour into the new project webpage on Council's website as part of this. So agenda today, activity to date, overview of work to date as a bit of a look back as we go forward, and then the comments of engagement and next steps at the end of that. So activity so 2023 activity prior to the last meeting was a site visit to the Greymouth BTF wastewater treatment plant by the project working group, and then, sorry, that was in 2022. So this Oversight Subcommittee went in February. Not everyone was able to make it, but that was a very good outing. The long list was closed out in January, and then the short list of potential schemes was presented to this subcommittee and endorsed in February. It was then presented to the full council 2 weeks later to their meeting, and so we'll go through into what that is, what that shortlist is again. Activities since the last meeting in February. For Westland Milk Products, we're working together with them regarding possible use of the ocean outfall, their ocean outfall. So Scott and I are working closely with Westland Milk on that, and that's a good relationship there. The Silver Fern Farms, they are carrying out an options assessment for additional on-site treatment and separation of their wastewater streams on their site, and just learned today that they have received back a consultant's report on that. So they've engaged an outside consultant to review their options and present a report. They're currently reviewing that, and will share that with us in the near future, and we'll come back to that. Detailed investigation of shortlisted schemes. So evaluation topics have been, the resources and aspects needing to be assessed have been worked through and established. And for the land discharge option, because we've got two options for discharge, ocean outfall and land west of the airport, the hydrogeological desktop work is underway on that, and that then feeds the on-ground and in-ground investigations which follow. In terms of communications and engagement, the project webpage on Council's website has been fully updated, and we'll go through that shortly. And we're using that as and I have been the last few weeks, as a location to point people to, as a one-stop portal of information. So when Steve first came on, I've forwarded that link with a bit of explanation to it, same to Councillor Patrick, and it's become an easy process to point people to. So the aim is that becomes a passive engagement tool for everyone here, for wider out into the community. And our comms and engagement plan for the project has been updated, including public information and feedback sessions coming up in November, or planned for November. Look backwards, look forwards. So this is our pathway timeline, or pathway with indicative timeframes on it. So the We Are Here has moved slightly along, so we're in the assessment of shortlist options. What follows that sometime in the new year is identification of a preferred option, and then the technical assessments for AEE resource consenting sort of process following on, which is beyond the blue shades there. Couple of key things on here that are on this slide, and it's slide used for the presentation to the full council, is the current consent, the existing consents expire in April 2016, and the latest application date for new consents, discharge consents, will be 6 months prior to that. So that's October 2025. So that's two of the key dates in the project. And so this timeline sort of shows the indicative processes on the way through to construction and implementation. Next slide is just a reminder of our options alternatives process, the sieving approach, where we started at the top, we're funneling down. So we're in the We Are Here shortlist position. The arrows that go up around on the right-hand side are a reminder that there's return loops. So should things come up in the process we're working through and we need to go back up for some reason and look at something again, or bring something back into the conversation or the assessments, then that's, we're mindful of that as a process. And I guess just a reminder at the bottom of the screen, the importance under the RMA and of the new process that will come in place to replace that, built environments, need for a robust and defendable approach to the alternatives assessment, which is what we're doing here. Next slide. So this is a summary sheet of our assessment overview and criteria. We are moving toward the MCA assessment, which is the multi-criteria analysis, and so the why in here is yes, all of these items are included in that, and that includes the affordability, financial and technical feasibility aspects, which are business case considerations that haven't been part of the assessments to date. So now that we look into the detail of the options, those parts come into play. And then this is our shortlist as presented previously into the full council. There is a pointer on this, isn't there? Being ocean outfall through the Western Milk Products pipe, land west of the airport, 3 locations for wastewater treatment plant itself, the actual plant, being existing site west of the airport, and then base treatment options being biological trickling filter, the BTF, as similar to Greymouth, or conventional for the land discharge option. And just noting there that the Silver Fern Farm options are still to be worked through and added to this, that is the domestic shortlist. And as a visual for location, we've got our receiving environment options that have been taken forward. I've highlighted them in blue. So we've got the existing Western Milk outfall and the land west of the airport, this one here. And then for the treatment plant locations, existing plant location west of the airport or airport. So they are the vicinity locations. So that's the kind of reflection on process to date. Any questions on that? Good. So now I've got 3 slides on communication engagement. So this is our planned comms and engagement through to the end of the year for discussion and endorsement. And for this, we'll just work through it and please ask questions. Ultimately, let's go through. Ultimately, next steps are comms and engagement based on endorsement of the 3 slides before. Continue with Western milk products, conversation there. Assess options with Silver Fern, assess their options with them, and then integrate those into the shortlist we've got. Continue the detailed investigations and of the shortlist, including those Silver Fern options, and then into the new year, the multi-criteria analysis of the shortlist, decision-making process, and preferred scheme identification. So coming back, slide 1. For we partner, we've got a number of things identified there. May or may not have a visit from Aotearoa Kaumātua tomorrow. Is that happening?
No, it's not.
Not happening, okay.
But there are interested other ones.
Yes.
Other whānau members that are interested.
Yeah, lovely.
Kaumātua is it?
Right. So we've got a planned presentation on the Hastings wastewater plant process, which is the presentation that's previously been given to this subcommittee and to the working group. So Jim Bradley will come down for that, and we're looking to tie that into a hui at the marae, which is bring the circle round from the very first hui there at the start of this whole project to share the journey experience and where we are and where we're going, similar to what we're doing here. So just close the circle and then carry on forward. Including a opportunity for a visit to the wastewater plant in Greymouth, which would be nice to have Patrick, yourself and Stephen come to something like that. It's certainly been a positive experience for people who have been there, including Western Milk Products. A little working group attended there a couple of weeks ago. Certainly opens people's eyes to what a wastewater treatment plant can look like, as opposed to what people think of as. Intention is to take, so from this, the next step for us is to prepare information for the public, information and feedback sessions in November. So we're looking to have an early feedback loop from every partner on that, wider than just through our iwi reps. So open that up and then bring it back to the Oversight Subcommittee for approval. And we've talked about, or this committee has talked about having a meeting at the marae at some point. This is a nice opportunity to perhaps schedule the next Oversight Subcommittee meeting at the marae if those time frames. And please speak.
So when we first started, because it was a partnership, it was envisaged that we would meet at each other's places. And that hasn't happened in the last 2 years. It hasn't been, the schedules just haven't worked and the bookings haven't worked. I met with John last week. So to help that along, I went and saw the marae to see what could be done there. And it can, this meeting can actually be done there on 2 in August and in September, because each of the different committees, you know, in partnership, you host each other. So those 2 days I've penciled out in the marae, and that's the 6th of September for our meeting, I think. Is it this meeting?
September is.
And the 9th of August for, was that for the information?
Yeah, that's right. That's nice.
Exchange with the iwi. And the whānau whiti kōrero was about our representation on this group, talking with our whānau, getting their, sussing how they're feeling about it all. And the kaumātua whiti kōrero, we have a kaumātua group that meets once a month from Taupōtini, and they've been hearing bits and pieces about it as well. That's about all.
Yeah,
and the August one is the whānau hui for public information material comment. Yes. And so we had planned for tomorrow's meeting to have some paper handouts to give to our kaumātua and any other interested whānau that come to Greymouth to look at the biotrial bed. But I've also just realised that we've actually got a wānanga going on the weekend at Makawhio because it's Matariki. So if we could also have some copies for them and we'll send that home with them.
I've prepared something here to chat with you afterwards.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because that way the information gets out to their comment. And if they want to, they have the opportunity to come and see us in action at the marae where they're comfortable, and they'll tell us.
Yes, nice. Good, thanks. Yeah, we'll just check the diary on the 6th of September.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we've already ticked off.
So I think to Miriam that if that's okay, if it works out, someone from here will get in touch with you, Miriam Johnston.
We tried to, tried to have one of these subcommittee meetings there, and it just didn't work because they were booked out. So.
They have been booked out, and then we've been trying to have a council meeting then too, and we have to have the Zoom facility and so forth available, and they've had few hiccups, so we're looking forward to having that resolution. And
I think, Emma, that was one of the conversations, wasn't it? Because I think even for the subcommittees, we want to have that, you want to have that, so that was getting that in play. Nice. Thank you, Emma. Next bullet was statutory authorities. So we early in the project had the very first project options workshop. We had the project working group, which is our 4 iwi reps. So this group is the governance group, and then the 4 iwi reps on the governance group also sit in the engine room with the project working group, along with council staff being CE, Scott, operations, Three Waters, and then Stantec technical staff. So that's our working group. We had the very start of the options assessments or options identification. We had a project working group with West Coast Regional Council, DOC was present, and Community and Public Health were invited but couldn't make it due to the COVID process. We're looking to regather in the near future, regather that project working group with those 3 statutory authorities, plus transition unit, Three Waters transition unit. Is there a better name for that, Scott?
Well, they just call themselves the NTU.
NTU, right. So everything here is a TLA, apart from WCRC, which is a FLA.
You know, TLA also stands for 3-letter acronym.
I do, yes. Thank you. So bring in the NTU and bring in the DIA, who's the funder. Scott has linked me with the representative of the NTU, and so...
The NTU are part of the DIA, aren't they, or are they separate?
Sort of, is the short answer. The NTU is kind of a side arm of the DIA. So that sounds like a gun, doesn't it?
Well, similar.
So the NTU is like a subset that's specifically targeted at dealing with the free water transition.
Yeah.
And the reason for getting them very involved in this is because of the whole transfer of free waters into the new entities. And we want to make sure that this project is fully functional and used across everything we want to. And if we can get them involved at this stage, you've got ownership. So we want, we want them to start. Certainly the person that I've put John in contact with is a very collegiate operator, very supportive in terms of what we're trying to do. So we just thought now was probably the right time to do it, rather than just dropping it on at some stage.
So I yesterday had a good chat with Ulrich, the NTU rep, and have shared with him the link to the project webpage. So once again, it makes for a very easy portal for people to go into. Had a good chat, he's asked a lot of questions, and he's very much looking forward to attending that project working group meeting along with the other parties. So I think that's going to be a very good opportunity for all those statutory authorities to be in the room together and ask questions. And
I think what's good for us with that is, one, he's got a water control background, but two, he's also got a history working for councils, so he understands the council perspective as well. So he's not coming into this with his eyes shut.
yeah.
Zurich.
Yes. Yeah.
John, I'm just very aware of these three-letter
Yeah, okay.
terminologies that Steve, look, please, if you want clarity or want people to speak in
English.
longhand for a meeting to get you familiar with all these abbreviations.
Pauline, if you can point at me when I say something and I need to expand on it, please. TLA is the three-letter acronym joke for pretty much everything out there is described in three-letter acronyms, being CPH for Community and Public Health, NTU for National Transition Unit, DOC for DOC, WDC for Western District Council, Wanganui District Council, Waimak District Council. And you can actually have a meeting where all you do is talk in TLAs and a few FLAs, which are the four-letter ones, like Wastewater Treatment Plant and West Coast Regional Council. I have taken pride in the past of only working for TLAs. So yeah, there's lots of these shortenings. SFF for Silver Fern Farms, WMP for Western Milk Products, goes on and on and on. MCA for multi-criteria assessment. ETF for
Eligible triple P.
trickling filter, very close. I think maybe next DIA for
We did an action. Oh, let's go that.
Yeah, Department.
CIA. I will bring chocolate fish for the next meeting. We'll have a quiz. So for the statutory authorities, we're having some conversation now with the Regional Council, firstly around the shortlist we've arrived at, and kind of like a pre-conversation around the regulatory aspects that we need to make sure we're considering through this shortlist investigations process to inform the evaluation of the shortlist. Because we want to know, is there any fish hooks, is there any showstoppers that we should be aware of in terms of the consenting process. So we'll have that conversation first, then have the group, regional, community and public health, DOC, NTU, DIA together. It's an opportunity and on the next slide to say this is where we're up to, this is the process we're following, these are the options we're looking at, have we missed anything? So it's the 4 key bullet points that we're going to take forward for all these conversations, including to general public in those info sessions later in the year. Key stakeholders, Western Milk, continue working closely with. Silver Fern, continue working closely with in relation to assessment of their options. So,
Oh yes, so I was just going to ask, it sounds like you're, just out of curiosity, are your conversations with Western Milk Products a lot further along than they are with Silver Fern Farms? It just seems like there's a bit more ground to cover with Silver Fern Farms.
no, well, with Silver Fern, no, I guess we could probably call it similar.
Okay.
With Silver Fern, they've got an existing treatment systems. They've got the various processes they follow with their, so they've got a red stream, so blood. They've got the yard waste.
Yeah.
Well, that's their treatment system. And they've got the paunch waste, which is the animal contents. They all have their own treatment kind of peculiarities. Oh, and they've got human waste. So the human waste is separated to the boundary, and whatever happens, the human waste will come to the wastewater. The domestic waste will come as town does to the wastewater plant, and then the other, without treatment on site, the other parts, we've asked them to investigate separation of their streams into the various types, and then look at additional treatment of those individual streams with a target of around 50% reduction in the load. So that's what they've gone out to their consultants with and have received a report on. So that package of work, once they share that with us, we can look at that with them and then work through the options that they have. And I'll bring up on the website shortly a window into what the options are for Silver Fern in terms of for the project, and then how they feed into our shortlist.
Yeah. So ideally for us, by the time the water's leaving the site, they've got as much of the solid matter or any other things that we have into the waste stream out as possible, and it's just sort of some sort of grey water or something like that.
Well, we're incentivising them for improved treatment and removal of product out of their waste.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that over the years. So
a lot of it they get out as byproduct anyway, which they can then sell.
They can then sell, yeah. And so one of the red stream has colour aspects associated with it. The yard waste has opportunity, and I think the paunch, for composting and other beneficial use. So they're the conversations we've been having with them. Andrew, our process engineer, who's intimately involved, did work for a meatworks as one of his early career processes, so he's very familiar with that process, which is very handy in this situation. So yeah, that's what we're working through. Once we get that information, I think at the next committee meeting, as well as reviewing the public information material that we're looking to take out later in the year, we'll better have a conversation around the options. I think at that point we'll probably have options, draft selection of options to take forward into the shortlist. Anyway, that'll be a target. Then airport. Airport is a key stakeholder given the location of where we're talking about with our options. And we are in conversation with them at the moment. So Scott is, and I believe Simon, and I have been of recent in relation to obtaining some information from them on geotech ground information to add to our model for the hydrogeological system. And they are a key stakeholder also in as much as one of the sites for a wastewater treatment plant is on their land, on the airport property. So a key part of the options. Next slide. Any questions on that page?
Sorry, can you just clarify what you're saying about land there? Is that could be or currently is?
The options for discharge So the land discharge is west of the airport, being between the highway and the airport boundary, property if you like, so in that land. The treatment plant locations include the existing site, west of the airport and airport. And that came through because the treatment plant itself is likely to be a pretty small footprint compared to what a discharge to land would be. So in terms of the compatibility with airport and airport use and birds and all those kind of things which become airport issues, as a working group, we brought the airport, the option of having the treatment plant on the airport through to the shortlist. That'll tease itself out through the list, the shortlist assessments. Yeah. So slide 2 is, so next layer down, so interested parties, including previous submitters, near neighbours, recreational users, business community, media, wider community. So the plan is e-newsletter to council, so using the normal council channels, e-newsletter to the council mailing list, previous submitters, key stakeholders, ongoing update of council's project webpage, which we'll come to, social media posts via the council's channels, and pre-engagement media releases. So we want people to know what's coming out in that targeted November, and have people actively looking at, understanding, asking questions about the content on the webpage.
So how near is it, like, I know you've got different potential locations there, but how near is it likely to be to residential properties and that sort of stuff, just in terms of when you get to affected party status with consenting and all that sort of stuff? Is that going to be an issue? The intention is to locate as far away from potential conflicts or domestic residential as possible to reduce or minimise or remove that as a concern to those people and to the project. While still getting close enough that you can service the residential areas.
Yeah. So, and the way, I'll come back to this slide, the way the process here, this one here, the process of the long list of options started with, there's the ponds here, this is where our domestic network brings all towns sewage to, this is where the plant is. So the first place to naturally start is thinking there because it's already quite to there. And then we moved across the road to somewhere that is away from a coastal hazard. And then the way we broke it down was, and these are the items here, west of the airport. Well, this is the discharge items. Wastewater locations were existing plant, west of the airport, then east of the airport, which is TP4. Then L4 was Blue Spur. We never looked at putting the plant any further away than east of the airport, but that one never came through because you have to pump everything to here and then back depending on where you're. And then for the land, we went backwards out to Blue Spur vicinity, over to the tailings type area, and then over to Southside. And so through the evaluations we've been through to date, and this is part of the message to be told and shared as part of the community engagement, to tell this story, then these items got culled out for various reasons, and there's good documentation of that, and we can jump on the webpage and I can take you straight to that, so it's a good viewport in. And then it's come back to these zones, these options. So it's the dashed line, the dashed oval, which is L1, west of the airport for land discharge, O3, which is the existing Western Milk outfall, O4 next to it, for reference, was a new council outfall, location not defined, so that never came through the cut. And then the treatment plants 1, 2, 3.
So that's the kind of logic process. Look, for resource consent process, we need to look at all the alternatives, and not just look over here. Not just look over here and think, oh, they're no good, they're too far away.
Yeah.
So we've gone quite broad, and then through the process of Civian process of evaluation, have arrived back at these, which some people will say, well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is there is a documented, defendable process that shows that the thinking, and it shows the reasons for those items to have been culled out and brought back. There's no reason, and I guess the opportunity's there. That fourth bullet point question: have we missed anything? It's nice for people to be able to see this. It's nice for this group to see this and think, oh, what about Southside? Have we thought about that? Yes, we have, and we can go to and show people, show you the considerations for that and why that was then struck out. Is that kind of is that good for you too, Steve, in terms of a summary?
When you get into conflicts with this sort of stuff, which inevitably will arise, there's this mythical place called somewhere else that you just expect it to put focus in. So you sort of need to, I mean, you're not going to go as far as Boston and things like that, but you need to sort of kick over most stones, really.
And in other communities, Te Anau, they have had to go as far as somewhere like Ross because the ground didn't suit for discharge, for treatment and discharge. So certain communities have some pretty tough receiving environments to have to deal with.
Just another, so you talk about sort of land settlement and discharge and stuff. Will there be, I know you haven't actually got a design necessarily, just looking at options, but will large ponds like the ones that we've got at the moment where the settling, so won't be that sort of...
Ponds has been, ponds have been struck out. So in terms of what's not on this slide, I took it off because it's sort of location focused, was the treatment options. So the treatment options, the four nominal options covered was ponds, BTF, conventional secondary treatment. So BTF is like greymouth. Conventional.
Just with longhand for BTF.
Biological trickling filter.
Okay,
And you'll have a mind map of it following a visit to there, as will Steve and someone else. Who else hasn't been there?
I went when it was first opened, so I need to go back.
You would have got a sausage as part of the...
I'm keen to go back.
Cool, love it. So ponds, i.e. what Hokitika has now, biological trickling filter, which is what greymouth has, secondary conventional treatment, similar to Westport, what Westport has, and then membrane treatment is what we noted as sort of the next level up, which is there's none for wastewater over here.
Right.
Groins?
Membrane is like the water treatment here, so very fine filtration. And we've noted membrane as a potential enhancement to whatever the solution is for this that we come to.
So just last train of thought on that particular thread is just, so if you're not doing ponds and you are up on the terrace near the airport or something somewhere, does that sort of take the whole bird situation out of the equation, or do they still like picking around smelling around for worms and sort of stuff, or what's the...
Well,
just thinking in terms of...
So in terms of a BTF treatment facility like in Greymouth, there's no concern with that being near an airport because of the nature of the plant and the lack of odour, as anyone who's been to that plant would.
Even inside it didn't smell.
Yeah.
I might put a mirror and shut the door. I don't think so. But it was surprising that
You expect, and it's not there.
the idea of going on a site visit to, always for treatment, but that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But actually, it was very interesting. That's, and like John said, the nursery across the road, the compost smells was.
There's a few funny stories there where
They actually had an odour complaint before the construction of the plant had been finished. There wasn't even any wastewater coming to it. And it was a compost delivery to the nursery next door. And there was I guess it's a good point to note, as part of that project, to get consent, there was a requirement to have I forgot the term, a community engagement or community liaison group. And those people came along all the way for updates, all the way through the sort of design and construction phase. And poor old John from the nursery had to acknowledge, because there'd just been another odour complaint, had to acknowledge that it was another delivery to his place. He was very concerned about the plant being across the road, because his business relies on people being able to smell plants and that kind of thing. And it's not an issue. So it's a pretty neat story, actually.
She was on the wrong foot.
Pretty neat that that's a success in that sort of quasi CBD area of Granville.
Yeah.
So that's where our shortlist lies, in the top left there. If we come back to there's the slide. So this was our planned approach, and so we're working closely with Emma Ray, Council's comms and engagement person. So that's been fun. And then in terms of wider community, the focus or the plan is having the project webpage on Council's website there, which includes, as a passive gateway in, background, detailed timeline, hot links to key documents, next steps, keep that active, keep it up to date. It's nice to know that the minutes for this meeting, or the agenda for this meeting, has been uploaded to Council's agendas page. It's also updated at the same time to this web page. So it's a nice process. That we keep that process going. Means that it's a very much up to date page. And then public information feedback sessions. The plan is to have 2 of those in November at the Hokitika RSA. And so they're an opportunity for everyone and anyone to come along. So the intention is we're working with our stakeholders, key stakeholders. We want to notify the general public, interested parties, the group listed at the very top here, keep people informed, and then keep pointing to November as the time for people to come together.
Can you quantify why that's November if it's mid-July now?
There's an election in October, so yeah, good question, thank you. Right. So it was worked through with our comms person and Emma from Council, that October being the election, and there was some other engagement activities that Council have been working through, just had the race course. Is there something else coming up before then?
I suspect there's probably a lot of things happening between now and then.
Yeah. Kind of works, and it gives time for the processes that are occurring. So we are working through with our key stakeholders now. So some of those the wheels have to move in different movements to move forward. There was one other. Is there some other done your long-term plan?
Yes, we've got the long-term plan as well. Yeah, that's as well.
That's right, yeah. So that hasn't happened yet, has it? No.
So that's a big piece of work. And I think that's a lot of staff involvement with that. A lot of demands on a lot of people.
So it's a combination of long-term plan, election, put this one there, clean sailing beforehand.
Otherwise it becomes very much a pressure cooker of time. And that's, we want to make sure the consultation's right. And we also want to make sure that we don't overload and annihilate everybody else.
Yes, yeah. A key part will be pointing to November and what's going to happen then, having informative site and communications before that, so that people who are starting to ask or may ask what's happening can know there's a point in time and can be informed ahead of that. The intention of those two sessions, and the reason for having two is because two is better than one, is it's also an opportunity for people to come along, kind of see things and maybe go away and come back again with questions. We're hoping that by having the pre-engagement information out there early, then people can come informed as well.
Close together engagements or a bit of play?
Well, I guess that's part of, on the next slide, it's agreeing dates, and we've got the right people in the room to do that. We think.
So very much through slides 1, 2 and 3 are part of what we are endorsing.
Yeah, that's right.
Approach at this meeting today.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess closing out this slide, the italics items there, which I mentioned earlier, was effectively this process is about saying this is where we're up to. This is the process we're following. These are the options we're looking at, and have we missed anything? So that's just our common message all the way through, similar to my question to the committee today in terms of what we're doing going forward. Shall I go now on? I want to take you into the web page. Do you want to go through this first, or do that and then come back?
We've got to sort of move and agree to all those aspects of it. So,
yes. Yep. Let's just go forward.
So I think go forward and then we'll come back.
Good. Nice.
We'll put the whole package together.
So slide 3. Items are endorsement of the comms and engagement approach, agreeing dates for, so on the basis that it is endorsed, agree dates for 2 public information feedback sessions in November, and then, which we've already done, next item is agree a date for the next Oversight Subcommittee meeting, which we've selected 6th. So we have these on a Wednesday, because it works for everyone, so Wednesday the 6th of September, and that the activity for that is review of the public information and feedback session material for approval going forward. And it may well be review of the Silver Fern Farm options that are looking to be taken forward, joining our shortlist. Who has a mastery of time in terms of dates?
Yeah.
What's the general thoughts in terms of day of the week and times for a public?
I was just going to suggest, just feedback that I've had from people about different things, is that evenings and either Saturdays or Sundays would be preferable, because a lot of people can't just pop in at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday or anything like that. If you actually want to make it accessible for people, I know it puts us and staff here out a little bit, but I think for the bang for buck you get in terms of actually just making yourself available.
And this is a substantial decision for council, which of course,
Usually on this aspect of it.
So one in the evening in the week and one in the weekends during the day.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Does anyone want to throw some dates?
12th is a council meeting, so during the day probably doesn't work that well. I wouldn't have thought.
Do we have a day of the week that people are thinking would be good for a? And is a Saturday the day? Saturday is the right day for a weekend.
Sunday's church, isn't it? So.
Saturday the 11th, how does that look for everybody? Saturday one?
Canterbury anniversary day.
Beautiful.
And when which night would you have during the week? Would you have the evening one?
And is there a preference of having the evening one before the weekend, the Saturday, or after?
Yeah.
Good.
Just thinking about that Saturday, you're saying it's Canterbury anniversary days. always a lot on here that weekend, I feel.
Actually, quite right.
All people
Always heading off, yeah.
So, yeah, probably worth avoiding, to be fair.
And silly things, but not a clash with sporting events on the TV, because we've had that before where no one turns up and
I might need someone else to check because my calendar's giving me 2 different days for Canterbury anniversary. One's observed. So have you got more of an oracle on that?
Do we want to have them close together as in that week and then the following weekend, or does it matter with time? Because, I mean, if we stick to the 8th, Wednesday, 8th of November, if we've got Canterbury weekend, anniversary weekend, Saturday, we go to the following one, the 18th.
Friday the 17th.
Yeah, 2nd on Saturday. That is it, right. So maybe the real one is the 11th, but the observed
So
is
the 11th is
That
good.
makes sense.
The 11th is good then, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
Didn't seem early.
So is that 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon?
We've gone back to Saturday the 11th.
Saturday, I think morning.
does the fact that it's Armistice Day will impact us all?
Oh, goodness.
Well, could well do for the venue that was proposed.
Armistice Day.
Armistice Day last year was involved a ceremony at RSA.
Yeah, because that's
During the morning.
the desired location. Having it, I actually just remembered I meant to
do a joint.
speak to them and seek a calendar so that we can.
Yeah, you get some more people then.
If I remember rightly,
Would we look at later?
we were there till about 11.
Yeah. So do the
What about Saturday the 4th of November? And then Wednesday the 8th. Pardon?
Give away 3 fireworks for the 5th.
So the 11th of November.
So the 11th, we understand is
Armistice. Yes, for Armistice, because it takes up the RSA. And I think you'll find that they will. So we're going to Saturday the 4th, is it?
we can go and do due diligence on these dates and make sure that they work.
I didn't realise so much happened in November. I thought it was done.
And then Wednesday the 8th. So John, do you want to check with the RSA on
Yes.
Saturday the 4th and then Wednesday the 8th?
Yep. And what time?
How long?
How long, what is our timeline? So the intention is for it to be an info, have things up on the wall, have information, have people in the room, so that people can come through, put up post-it notes of things they like, things they'd like us to think about, things they don't like. That's the expectation.
So book the room.
Is this like 5 p.m. I think so, yeah, I presume so.
We don't have to go quite so early in the morning for the Saturday because we haven't got the sports to work around. So we did a 12-hour day there on the Saturday.
That's good idea.
No, but we don't need to do that.
Will 10 till 2 work?
So, for the Saturday, something expands through
Open the doors from 9, don't have the meeting till 11, and they've got 2 hours if they want to look at stuff.
No, there's no intention, well, no,
No, it's just information, so we could go 10 till 2, people can and engage and talk.
yeah. And so we'll just talk, I mean, I guess the intention is to have a selection of people from this group and from us, talk and answer questions. So we're thinking, what was that, 10 till 2?
Yeah.
You have Jim's video on a loop as well.
Can do, yeah. No, it's good to hear that, yeah. We'll have Jim as well. Talk on a loop.
And then Wednesday, it's either sort of, do we need to be 5:30 or do we look at 6 till 8?
Was it worth coinciding with a work day and people can start on their way out?
Yeah, 5.
That's true.
Is it like
5 to 7.
is it 4 till 8 or something like that? Just there's another 4-hour block.
Another 4 hour
For
block.
people who can come after school and. So it's Saturday the 4th, 10 till 2, Wednesday the 8th, 4 till 8 p.m. Nice. So that's, we've ticked off the bottom 2 items. let's talk about endorsement of the approach, or any comment or any suggestions or any work-ons that the group thinks we need, or anything to make sure of from your perspective or knowledge. Is there any concerns?
As long as we're confident we've got everybody captured there, and then we've also got the best possible means of having as widespread communication as possible. We can't go too far wrong, really.
Which is what we've tried to present here, so that there isn't information sessions happening to selected groups early on that raises the ire of other groups or the wider community. So, sort of at pains to note, this is wider community all is when we have the public information and feedback sessions, so that everybody here and further back, stakeholders, anyone can come along, and we make sure everyone's informed along that pathway toward there.
When you go for your resource, or when we go for our resource consents for this, will it be limited or public notification? Do you know?
I imagine it'll be full notification.
Yeah, so
And it's unlikely to be the council that potentially that goes for it.
yeah,
Because it may well be the NTU.
yeah. So I guess like we want to do as good a job as we can with communication engagement and stuff. And anyone that neglects or fails or whatever to engage in this process, however, while we do it, they'll still have every option, especially if they're identified as affected parties. They'll actually be actively approached, won't they?
Yes,
So,
And one of the reasons for asking, have we missed anything, as we move through our shortlist assessment, is now's the time to have those questions asked or things raised, so that those considerations can be taken into account through this assessment process. So when we do go to we assess the shortlist, we can take those items into consideration. So that's a key message.
So this is sort of just investing in this sort of stuff ahead of time to make sure the consent process is as smooth as possible.
The entire process, the entire process is following that pattern, so that all the options, all the alternatives are looked at, even the ones that many people would say, well, that's never going to happen. So, Emma, you were there from the start.
Would Matafi like to have meetings somewhere, like Laser Park or something?
I don't.
And stuff?
Yeah, well,
Or they'll just rock up to the marae?
possibly. There's no reason why they can't go to either. Either could be an option.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't had a discussion with Paul, so I don't know what they're thinking is on it.
And certainly,
But we could definitely do it together. I don't think we need to tie up time to have it in two different locations.
but if there is a difference,
Yeah.
So just going back to the statement that talks about who might be in charge of this at a given point in time.
yes,
Under the original rules reform proposals, everything would have gone across July 2024, which would have meant that the resource consent process would have been dealt with by the new entity. Now it's any time between July 24 and July 26, depending at what point during that time, and it might not be within our year. That may then determine who's making the resource consent application or not.
Yeah.
And it's not clear yet whether the date decision is voluntary for councils or whether. So that's yet, but hence the need to get the National Transition Union round the table now, because we need to get them fully embedded in it. I mean, what they've said to us all the way along is that they're not going to deliberately go out their way to be difficult. So, you know, projects that are going through due process, we expect continue to go through due process. But we might need to hold their hand a little bit in the early days. So, just to clarify.
thanks, Scott. And now is a great time for them to come in, sit at the table and be involved and ask questions through a different lens. And that'll be helpful, a good process. Again, it's have we missed anything?
I think the other important thing is that come consultation day and also information newsletters, wherever going out, is that we remember that the recipients don't know what we know.
Yes.
And they don't know these sort of abbreviations. And we'll ensure that it's in layman's terms, but not complex enough that we lose them on the journey.
Indeed. Which is why we've got non-engineers involved.
Props as well was really good. You know, when you showed us this is what the little plastic thing looks like.
Yes, I think maybe it's good for this committee to be, because that next meeting is to view and critique and endorse the material for that. So there's going to be an opportunity at the next meeting to see the things that are planned and have feedback on that. This is by no means endorse what's written on 2.5 slides and then see you later. This is an organic process. If anyone wakes in the night and thinks of something that we've missed or that we should try and do in terms of that engagement, bring it to the table. I'm thinking too, maybe everyone who's been to the wastewater plant and has seen what's there, maybe a detailed set of photographs that kind of show some of those aspects so that people can see the nature of what's being considered as an option.
Even down to the blown up pictures of the little microbes that eat the stuff as well.
It's part of that slideshow of Jim's. Yeah, no, that's a good. So almost his slideshow as one of the features would be good.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's a good, as well as it being a slideshow, but have a printout. Yeah, right. And that will go out. I presume the best way is for that to go out to this committee again ahead of that meeting. In the week or week and a half ahead or something, so that you can kind of look at it and mull over it. We'll work out a way that works for that. So, endorsement? Yes, no? Go away, come back, try and harder.
The other part to keep it tidy is actually accept or receive John's report and then also.
Sure.
So is the next stage of the
I'm just going to show you the next steps. Let's do that. Comms and engagement, as per the previous slides, based on the endorsement from this group. Western Milk, continued discussion regarding their ocean outfall. Silver Fern Farms, assess their options with them and addition of the selected items through to our shortlist, domestic shortlist. Detailed investigations, so of those shortlisted schemes, including the Silver Fern Farm options. So continue with that. And then it's in the new year, the multi-criteria analysis of the shortlisted schemes. It's decision making, and this is a key one that Jim likes to point out. The MCA will be done, but it doesn't give an answer. It's still decision making for this group and council to make, to select a preferred scheme. And then there'll be additional considerations of the preferred scheme going forward from there. That's the next, that's through the end of the year and into next year. Yes. Questions? There's none written there, so that's quite good.
Can I ask something that feeds on what Patrick was saying earlier on? Which is, if by the time that this goes through, it's actually going to be the new entity that's going for the resource consent, but all the prep work and all the analysis has actually been done by us as a completely different agency, is there some kind of mechanism that has to be in place that allows the work that we've done to be considered as part of the new entity's application. I don't know whether there's a legal split in terms of what we're doing.
The application will be an application for consents, along with an assessment of environmental impacts, an AEE. So that is not the kind of document that council or this group is going to prepare. So that AEE and submission for consent will be prepared by consultants or others for the project. And so whether it's coming from council or from them, they'll need to know that they endorse that.
In a previous life, when I've done a transfer from a public entity into a separate entity, we actually had to go to court to get legal stuff that was viable for the council transferred across.
Because they were the author of it, the owner of the information.
That's the issue. I'm just checking out. Well, we can follow that.
I guess the key part right now is having the NTU in the room at the table, so that processes that have been followed, which then lead to, once a preferred scheme is identified and then taken forward with, I'll come back to the slide that shows the timeline, the pathway timeline. So this is the end of the blue. Dark blue is the identification of a preferred option, and from then there's technical assessments for AEE, consent and AEE prep, consent application, those processes. So through here, if the conversation has come up, you reminded me now, if a consent was gained by council, does the council own that, or how does it get handed that consent? So if the consent has already been obtained, how does it get handed over?
The consent is obtained by the information.
But it's the applicant.
It's applied by the applicant, but it's by the information. If the information is given to the next entity, they still have the consent.
I don't think the consent dies. Like when you buy a business, you inherit all of that business's existing permissions and consents and everything else. So I can't see why this would be any different. The only, just touching on that is there any chance that they come in, big blustery centralised authority, new name cards and nameplates and all the rest of it, and think, oh, bugger all John's good work, that was just done by Epoxy District Council, but we're the great, transitional authority or something like that, and just reinvent the wheel and waste a heap of money on it.
They've given us, they've said to us that they don't intend to do that, and that there's also an issue around they're going to need some
flagship. Strongest assurance they've given.
Well, they are going to need flagship projects to demonstrate to deliver on the promises they make. So actually, they're going to have to be seen to be showing the impact of it all. I think that I think that they would get themselves into real trouble if they start knocking back projects that people already got.
3 years for a consent, and they're coming up to a new consent time. They don't have the time frame to do it with what we've got.
They'll inherit the same deadline we've got, which is that they're going to have whether it's us or them, someone's going to have a non-compliant plant by 2025, aren't they? So that's
the bigger issue for us will be, depending on when the decision is made, is who's paying for it, and if it's the new entity, the chances are they'll have more money than we've got. So the difficulty would be is if it comes down on the council's side of the decision making, or we end up with discretionary money. That'll be an area that we need to explore. So we've already contacted the DIA to say you need to be starting to consider whether you're prepared to forward fund some of this stuff, even though the transfer might not happen on that side.
In response to your question, Patrick, the process that the project has been following has all been documented, so that there is a body of evidence moving through that is all there and able to be shared now, worked through with the NTU coming on now and joining in, and Scott has been keeping them informed through the process. Now feels like the right time for them to come and sit at the table and see the body of work, which they're doing now through the portal, and have input. ask questions along with the other statutory authorities. So it's a very open book. It's all documented. The journey path is all there, so that it isn't a surprise or a how do they get to this point at the end.
Because effectively we're going to be committing them to expenditure, so that's, you know.
So I think that was the end of the presentation. Any more questions? David, you must have more. No.
So, John, as far as you said that you wanted to go over to the council website,
Yeah, I was just keen to, if people wanted to, just show this group the access in there and what's in there, and it might, and I can show you the options for silver fern farms where they sit in the long list. Still to be worked through there. Would you like to do that now? Or do you want to close the meeting and endorse the
and then
detail? Yeah.
Do you want the further information on the website and silver fern farms contained in this meeting?
If it doesn't have to be, then I think probably we can close down this.
Just have a week, yeah.
You've seen that website through me. Yeah, I'll look at that.
Okay. So if everybody's happy with that, can I have a move and a seconder, please, so that we can resolve that the Hokitika Wastewater Upgrade Project presentation from John has been received, first and foremost.
I'll move it.
Thanking you, but also can we include in that the subcommittee endorses the proposed engagement and approach that's been shown to us today? The subcommittee identifies dates for public information and feedback sessions, which we've gone through and noted the time, and John will come back for assurance that that works with the RSA, and that the subcommittee set a date for the next subcommittee meeting being that of the 6th of September, which will be held at the Hera Marae. So thank you, Councillor Phelps, thank you, Emma, for seconding that. All in favour? Against? All right, thanking you very much. Let's, we will declare the meeting closed at 4:20. Yay! Thank you, and